We don't yarn shame. Please don't light fibers on fire in a thrift store. Hey everyone, it's Issa Morgan from Queer Crochet, and today I want to talk about where to get natural fibers on a budget. Now, I know there's a ton of discourse around acrylic yarn, and we don't yarn shame here at Queer Crochet. You can use whatever yarn you want, whatever yarn you like, whatever yarn you can afford. We don't gatekeep, and I know acrylic is widely available, especially for people just getting into the craft or people who are on a budget. It tends to be the most affordable. That being said, it is one of my personal goals moving forward to use less acrylic yarn just for the environment, just to use less plastic in general. There's a whole conversation to be had around sustainability and the plastic used in yarns and individual consumption versus corporate consumption. And we're not going to get into all of that today. Maybe in a future video, if y'all want to talk about that, we can. But today we're just focusing on if you want natural fibers and are on a budget, where can you find it? I think there's a prevailing belief that natural fibers have to be expensive. And there are a lot of expensive natural fibers out there. Don't get me wrong, that's totally true. But that doesn't mean if you're on a budget, you cannot have access to natural fibers. Now, before we get into where you can find them, if you like crochet, fiber arts, thrifty, sustainability, crafts, experimentation, the LGBTQ community, the neurodivergent community, any of those things, maybe hit the subscribe button. Stick around. I'd love to have you. With that out of the way, let's get into where to find natural fibers on a budget. My first recommendation and my favorite place to look for natural fibers is on Facebook Marketplace. Not only can you find really unique yarns, you can find natural fibers, but you're also supporting someone local rather than a big business. You're buying secondhand, you're keeping yarn out of a landfill by giving it a new life. I've bought yarn off Facebook Marketplace and it's been awesome. You get to meet other fiber artists oftentimes, which is really cool, and it's gonna be a lot cheaper than buying it new from a retailer. And there's like surprisingly quite a few people that sell yarn on Facebook Marketplace. Granted, of course, that's gonna be dependent on where you live, but I definitely did not expect to see really anything on there when I first went on and searched, and found so many people having like huge hauls and taking pictures of like, here's my stash, let me know if you have any questions about any of the particular fibers. And I could just message and be like, hey, I'm looking for a wool, or I'm looking for a cotton. What do you have? What colors do you have? What brands do you have? What weights do you have? And people have been so kind to respond and provide that extra information so that I could say like, yep, I want this one and this one and this one. Another great thing about Facebook Marketplace is you can negotiate. So even if you don't have the money to spend, maybe you can say like, hey, I'm willing to do a fiber trade, or will you take X amount of money for a bundle that's maybe a little bit discounted? And people are oftentimes really open to things like that. My first stop for looking when I'm trying to get natural fibers on a budget is Facebook Marketplace. Editing Issa here. Marketplace is also a great place to find garage sales or estate sales, which are other great places to find big stashes of yarn. Number 2 is a creative reuse store. Now, if you don't know what a creative reuse store is, it's essentially a thrift store for craft supplies specifically. They are getting more and more popular, at least across the US, which is where I live, so I can't speak to other countries, but so many have cropped up lately. There was another YouTuber who did a video about creative reuse stores and going on a tour of the country of creative reuse stores. I'll try and link it down in the comments if I can find it again. But go into your Maps app, Google Maps, whatever you like to use, and type in creative reuse, type in craft thrift store, and see what pops up. Back when I lived in Oklahoma, I assumed I didn't have any, so I never went. When I moved here and found a creative reuse store in my current city, I went and Googled creative reuse back in my previous town, and there was one, and I never knew about it, and I never went, which is really a shame. So you may not know that you have one, but check it out. See what you can find on the internet. If I can find a map of them, maybe I'll try and put a screenshot or a link or something to a map of US creative reuse stores, but more and more are cropping up all the time. So definitely look to see if you have one near you, and if you don't, maybe you can get one started. A lot of them are volunteer run, a lot of them are community based. I don't have any experience in that, so I am not going to speak to how easy or difficult that is, but if you don't have one near you and want one, it might be worth looking into. But that's a great space to find natural fibers, and you're supporting somewhere that is promoting sustainability and ethical consumption by keeping things out of landfills. I love my creative reuse store. I went just the other day and got a few things. I'll probably insert a clip here of the yarn section of the store that I went to, but I love going there. There's so many amazing things and the prices are great. So great way to get sustainable natural fibers for cheap. Suggestion number 3 is any thrift store. So while creative reuse stores are amazing and great sources of craft supplies and of yarn and fiber arts tools, if you don't have one near you, check out your other thrift stores. From a thrift store, whether a local or a chain, you can find oftentimes bags of yarn. I know Goodwill does big bags of, they'll just get a bunch of yarn, stick it in a bag, price it for a set amount, and you can grab it. Some places sell yarn in skeins individually, or you can also unravel. I love to look through the blankets and linen section. Oftentimes there will be homemade crochet or knit blankets that you could then take and unravel and use that yarn, and you're getting a full blanket's worth of yarn for a few dollars depending on your thrift store. What is hard about thrift stores, whether a conventional thrift store or a creative reuse store, is it doesn't always have a label on it. You may not always know what type of fiber it is when you're purchasing it. You can kind of take some guesses, but you can't do a burn test in a thrift store. Please don't light fibers on fire in a thrift store. Please don't do that. But you can when you get home. Take your best guess, and if it does end up being acrylic, then it's better to get it secondhand than to buy it new, and again, keep it out of the landfill. But not only can you find either yarn or crocheted or knit pieces, you can also unravel commercially made pieces. And what's nice about that is that it will have the fiber content on the label. So I like to go through the blankets, go through the sweaters, see what's a fiber that I'm looking for, a color that I'm looking for, and you can unravel it. This orange yarn here was a poncho that was $1 at my thrift store, and I unraveled it and now have 2 balls this size of orange yarn. Now, I'm gonna be so honest, I've had this for a while and I don't remember what the fiber content is, if it's acrylic, if it's natural fibers. But on a commercially made piece, it will tell you on the tag or in the care instructions what the fiber content is so that you can know what you're getting. And it's really satisfying to take something that maybe is kind of ugly or something that, has gotten love out of it but is ready for a new life, and to make it into whatever you want. I think unraveling does take some effort and time to figure out how to do, but I think it's totally worth the effort to learn how to do it and to get a ton of yarn for really affordable and some really nice yarns. On Reddit, there's a subreddit, r/unravelers, where people are all the time sharing, oh my gosh, I found this 100% cashmere sweater that I'm gonna unravel and use to crochet X, Y, or Z. Oh my gosh, look at this superwash merino wool blanket I found that I now can unravel and got for $5 or whatever. So it's a really great community to go check out if you're new to unraveling. But it's a great way to get a ton of natural fiber for not too expensive. Suggestion number 4 is your local yarn store. Now I know what you might be thinking. That's not cheap, that's not on budget. And I hear you. Hand-dyed yarns can get expensive. Local yarn stores, they have to price it to make a profit to stay open. But we love supporting our local businesses, and a lot of them have sales. I got these skeins of orange and yellow sparkly yarns at a local yarn store for $4 each, 237 yards, $4 each. I got all of the skeins that they had of them, and I want to make a sweater vest out of it, a checkered one. I'm so excited. $4 for a skein of yarn from a local shop that I got to support. The owner was so nice, so amazing. There were tons of skeins of this left, so I was able to get enough for a full project, and it did not break the bank. Like $4 for 237 yards, that's like budget yarn prices. Don't be afraid to go into your local yarn shop, look around, see if they have a sale area, and if you don't find anything that you want or can use, like having foot traffic in there, I think they'll really appreciate even if you don't buy anything at that time. So don't be scared to go into a yarn store, even if you're not sure if you're gonna purchase anything. Every time I've gone into a local yarn store, the people working there or the owners have been so excited, so welcoming to talk to me, so kind. Whether I purchase something or not, it's been great. So definitely go support your local yarn stores. You might be surprised, they may have some natural fibers at a really affordable price. Number 5 is retail. There are some shops and natural fibers that are more affordable than others. For cotton, I'm sure most of us are familiar with Lily's Sugar and Cream or Peaches and Cream, which is the Walmart version, which is a cotton and a budget cotton. And while I know people don't always love those fibers because they can be tough to work with and scratchy, there are things you can do to work with them to make them feel nicer. Washing them with a ton of fabric softener honestly does wonders to soften up and loosen up the stitches. It does take a little bit of extra work. Maybe it's harder on your hands if you're gonna use a more budget-friendly natural fiber, but that doesn't mean that it's inaccessible to you, that you have to use acrylic yarn. You don't have to if you don't want to. There are ways to make budget natural fibers work for you. I will try and put some good options up on the screen, or maybe put a list down below in the description of some good options for natural fibers. There's Lion Brand Wool Ease, which is carried at Michael's. I've heard Drops is a really budget-friendly wool yarn. I've never actually bought it or looked at it, so I cannot vouch for that. But there are some out there, they do exist. It maybe just takes some sifting through and looking around to see what the options are in your budget for the fiber content that you want. And number 6 is to hand dye your own yarn. Oftentimes getting a yarn blank can be cheaper than getting yarn that's already been dyed. You can get some yarn dyes for pretty inexpensive. You can use food coloring even if you want to. It may not be the most color fast, but there are ways you can make it stay better depending on what your project is. So you can get the supplies to dye your own yarn, and then you get some really beautiful hand-dyed yarns. You can make it exactly what you want it to be, what colors you want, what designs and patterns you want, and then when you have your final product, you not only crocheted or knit the thing, but you also dyed the yarn, and that is so cool. It does take extra work, but you can dye your own yarn for a little bit cheaper than buying it. I'm gonna wrap this video up. Tell me in the comments below, which is your favorite way to get natural fibers? Are there any other ways that I've missed? Do you like natural fibers? Do you like acrylic fibers? Let's chat in the comments. Thank you so much for joining me. Like this video if you liked it. Subscribe if you want to see more videos from me, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!